guys, apologies for that. We had a bit of an update on OBS, so it just threw out all of the settings. So I'm sorry we're a tiny bit late, but welcome to a brand new Watchlist stream. I'm Nymfria, and we're getting to the nitty-gritty part of the season now. So with chips flying all over the place and blank and double game weeks galore, it's time to look ahead to double game week 28 with some Watchlist players. I'm joined as always by Kylie. How you doing, lovely?
I am really good, Nim. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good.
There was a bit of trepidation.
Apart from that little bit of panic there.
Yeah, there was an almost moment where we were like, I don't know if anyone can see us.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's good to be back. And obviously we're just through a sort of 27, knee deep in the blanks and doubles mayhem of the next few weeks, so it should be good.
Absolute mad time. With all of that, what are we going to be attempting to cover today?
Right, so as you would expect, because we're now heading into game week 28, which is a reasonably large double game week, followed by 29, which is not as big a double game week, but has all the exciting ones in them. And then we've got a big old blank in game week 30.
Yeah, just to slap us in the face there after all the doubles. Just okay, back to earth now.
That's it, right? And if any of you were watching the match last night or following it, you would have seen that Southampton beat West Ham in the FA Cup, which means that in addition to the 3 fixtures in 30 you would have already known about, we've now got West Ham and Spurs playing as well. That will suit lots of people. For me, I actually have triple Southampton at the moment because I'm bench boosting next week. Okay. So I was really hoping Southampton would lose because it would just make game week 30 easier. Yeah. Anyway, with all of that going on, we're sort of more narrowly focusing on 28 and a bit beyond, just to try and help you with your thinking over the next couple of weeks. So I guess before we kick off our picks for this week, we have had some requests to do a bit of a look back going forward on how our picks have performed. What we will do in coming weeks is add a little bit more structure around that. So I'm going to start monitoring them for us so we can see, because we definitely have had some big wins. Unfortunately, last week was not one of them. So new viewers and listeners, please don't be put off if this is your first time watching the stream.
Or if last week was your first time. I mean, they were long-term picks.
Veghorst was definitely not a long-term pick, but he was a double pick. And, you know, I think we all got blinded by optimism of a double. And
Burnley, yet again. Yeah, I mean, every time there's a Burnley double, they seem to be by themselves and you just feel the need to load up on them and then they never produce.
Exactly, right? Like Pope did so well in the previous one and then bombed in this one. Me got injured again. Me is such a double game week curse, I swear.
Thankfully I didn't actually go there this time.
Yeah, I feel sorry for the people who missed him for the 26 double and brought him in for 27 because that I mean, if you had him for 26, I don't really have that much sympathy for you because you did well. But so our picks last week.
So you got something from him, so be
exactly
grateful.
On balance, it's fine, right?
Yeah.
So our picks last week were Veghorst, Sancho, Rafinha, and then Nim's pick was Sterling, and mine was Broja. Yeah. None of them got anything in the first match that they've played. Some of them are longer term picks, particularly the likes of Broja and Rafinha, who are really going to help you navigate this kind of coming period. But certainly Sancho and Veghorst were one-off picks who disappointed. United just really struggling against Watford, which is bizarre this season. But anyway, so what we're going to do going forward is we're going to start tallying them up, and I'll probably monitor from, say, a 4-week period, because the picks aren't necessarily just for 1 week. So it'll be interesting to see a snapshot of how they do over the sort of immediate period after we've chosen them. So stay tuned for that.
Absolutely. And I think it'd be really good because we have had some good corkers as well over the first couple of weeks that we did it. So yeah, it'd be really nice to kind of keep track of that, and it was requested, so it'd be nice to kind of deliver on that as well. So I think on that note, we should probably delve into the coming game week, and the first of our watch list picks is Adams of Southampton. He's gone under the radar a bit, with Brozier stealing a fair amount of the limelight. Of course, doing well again last night in the FA Cup. But he has great fixtures ahead, doesn't he, Kylie?
He does, yeah. So, I mean, obviously the big I just told you I have 3 Southampton players, right? So
you are all in.
Not what I expected at all. I have had Livramento and Brozier for a good while, just sort of sitting on the bench. And I ended up going for Ward-Prowse. As I said, I'm playing my bench boost in 28. So that's the reason why I have so many budget Southampton players. We'll get into why they're good picks. But I mean, obviously the big factor at the moment is the immediate double that they have in 28, which is a nice combo. So it's Villa and Newcastle. Now, you know, Newcastle are in form at the moment. Villa have, well, you know, they've been a bit yo-yo, and obviously from an attacking perspective haven't been so great the last couple of weeks, but they have been conceding goals as well. So it's one of those kind of combinations of fixtures that is not sort of playing Norwich and Watford, but it is good. And then speaking of Watford, they have Watford in 29, which just compounds things. Now, the frustrating part, as I alluded to at the top of the stream, is the fact that they did win their FA Cup match. Yeah. So what was looking initially on paper like it might be a Burnley Southampton fixture dropping into 30 is no more. So it is something to factor in, you know, with all of our picks really, is that 30 blank and the fact that those players won't be there. So I think, you know, when looking at the likes of Adams, and many we'll get into why, but I mean, one of the reasons I think is we're constantly talking about lack of compelling forward options.
Yes,
and
exactly this.
Adams does look on form, the pick for this particular double, because we don't really have those premiums doubling this week. So just bear that in mind, that, you know, if you're free hitting in 30, it's really not a problem. Or if you have an alternative for him or whatever, depends on what your team is. After that blank, they've got Burnley, and, you know, really their run isn't bad. They've got Chelsea and Liverpool throughout the remainder of the season. But otherwise it's pretty good. So why not? If you can navigate 30, fixtures look pretty good.
Yeah, I'm deciding if to wildcard this week. But if I am, I will have a bit of a headache on whether to go with Brozier for the extra bit of cash or Adams on form. And he really does have form on his side at the moment. He scored 7 goals and 3 assists this season. 3 of those goals and 1 of those assists coming in the last 4 game weeks, which consisted of Spurs, Man United, Everton and Norwich. So, you know, a bit of a mixture there in terms of teams. So as you're saying, Kylie, those up-and-coming fixtures really complement like his recent form. Are the stats backing it up?
Yeah, they are. So if we look at season long, right, he's got an XG of 5.03 and an XA of 0.94, which is, you know, he's overperforming those stats basically. But I think what is good is that we can see that he's definitely gaining confidence over, like, remember when he first joined Southampton and it took him like the whole season to score a goal, and it was that crazy worldy goal against City, I believe, that he eventually scored. So he's kind of been a really slow burner in that Southampton team. But if we're looking, instead of season long, if we look at the last 6 game weeks to get a better idea of his recent form, his XG is 2.94, and you know, that's the 3 goals, so that's bang on. He's also had a goal involvement of 44% for Southampton's goals, so that's really good, nearly 50%. In that 6-week period, he's had 13 attempts on goal, 6 on target, 4 big chances. So that's pretty nice numbers. He's also created 6 chances. One of those was a big chance. And do remember that in that 6, and it's not game week, sorry if I said that, it's actually 6 matches. So just because game weeks are hard to go by,
because
right?
they're all over the place at the moment.
Yeah, so last 6 matches, he did actually come off the bench for one of those. So it's sort of 5 and a bit more than anything. So that looks really good. And as for Southampton as a team, they're so much better than I think we all thought, right?
Yeah,
so
agreed.
Over the last 6, they are ranked 4th for goals scored, which is pretty good. And in fact, the teams ahead of them are Liverpool, Arsenal, and City. So, little Southampton keeping some lovely company there.
Yeah.
They are also ranked 4th for big chances. And they're ranked 2nd overall for shots on target. So a worthy attack. And I think this is why you'll see a lot of people focusing on Southampton.
Yeah.
Whether it's Brozier or Adams or, Ward-Prowse or their defense, they, from an attacking perspective, certainly are the most compelling of the teams that have a double in 28.
Yeah, I agree. And even though Adams is a little bit more expensive than Brozier, he's still considered a bargain forward, right, in that 7 mil category. He's now ahead of King and Edouard with points, 83, and still a differential at 5.8% owned. So if he kicks on from here, he really could help anyone who's looking to gain rank this week in particular. But of course, just bear in mind that there is that blank in game week 30 now for Southampton, so we'd have to obviously wait and see where they would drop back in. So our second pick is Rudiger of Chelsea. Chelsea will have a double game week added into game week 28, so that consists of Newcastle and Norwich. So we've gone all circa game week 16 here and added Rude Boy to our watch list. Now, I don't know about you, Kylie, but I'm wondering how I fit all these premium defenders into my team at the
Without
moment.
wildcarding. I mean, you're thinking about wildcarding. That makes it easier, but it is.
But even on a wildcard, it's not as easy as it once looked because, you can go for the likes of Robertson, Trent, or if you wanted to save a bit of cash, maybe Van Dijk or Matip, along with, Robbo or Trent. And then obviously you're going to want to keep Cancelo. And then you're probably going to want to have a Wolves defender or maybe even a Southampton defender. So it only really leaves one spot open for a Chelsea defender. And if you put a Chelsea defender in there, then you could potentially end up with no defence in game week 30 if you're not, free hitting. So, and I think if I wildcard, I'll be attempting not to free hit in 30. Yeah. Just because I want to set up my team for a couple of game weeks and make sure I try and really utilise the wild card for a few game weeks instead of like wild carding just for 2 game weeks and then free hitting and then wanting to refresh my whole team afterwards. It seems kind of pointless. Having that free hit in the bag will be more helpful down the line to me. So it's tough, but I think there is an opportunity to potentially jump on and off of players here over the next few weeks. So, I think if you are inclined to go for a Chelsea defender this week, you could then maybe move them on to a Liverpool defender next week for their double, and then obviously plan to get them back in again post 30 once you know whether you're going to double on Liverpool defence or go with Chelsea. But Rudiger isn't cheap at 6.1 million, and despite Chelsea's blanks, he is still 20.1% owned, which really shocked me.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so not having him could actually hurt my rank if he was to do anything in this double, But it's not just this double with Chelsea, is it, right, Kylie? Because even though they blank in 30, their fixtures are really tasty until the end of the season.
Yeah, they are. And actually, I'll get into that in a minute. We just had Nuclear Atom in the chat asking about Rudiger and his ownership and whether we only do differentials. We do try to keep a good number of differentials in there. So we try to avoid some of the obvious picks. But if we are, say, swerving. If everyone sort of actively had a player in their team already, we're not necessarily going to talk about them. Obviously, Rudiger is owned by a lot of dead teams. So it's really about active managers and whether they're starting to consider bringing someone in that will play in. So sometimes you'll see a slightly higher owned one. Granted, we did not think Rudiger was quite as highly owned as he is.
He has shot up. I think he's shot up since we originally thought about our players by like 4 or 5% already. So
people are jumping in,
they are absolutely.
But yeah, so that just gives you a bit of an idea of how we choose. So there'll always be some uber differentials in there, and some maybe lesser so. As to Rudiger and his fixtures, it feels really weird kind of trying to think about Chelsea as a team, right? Just simply because
almost forgotten about them. They've been around so long.
So actually they only missed 24 and 25.
I know.
It feels because like we had that winter break as well. It just actually feels like they were gone for so long that at the Club World Cup that I genuinely forgot who is in that team. So much so that in fact James is now back.
Yes.
And he obviously would have been a great pick as well. And he's a more exciting pick, but he's also still potentially slightly too early, but could be a good pump for those who go for him. As to the fixtures, so the reason everyone's jumping early is not only because they have a superb run to season end, but because of the fact that they won their FA Cup match. They have had their originally game week 30 was a fixture against Norwich. And that's now been moved into 28. Now, you will note actually on the FPL website, unless it's just happened, that fixture hasn't actually been updated in there yet, which is a bit odd.
I'll check actually.
It was announced before the FA Cup match by Chelsea that this would,
and Norwich, right, on Twitter, I think.
So it has been officially confirmed.
Oh, they've added it in now.
They have. Okay, that's interesting because this morning it definitely wasn't in there. And I think I saw someone on Twitter actually before we jumped on asking about that. So it should be in there now. So basically it's Burnley and Norwich for 28. Pretty juicy, right? And considering that Norwich are bottom for pretty much all attacking metrics, like big chances, attempts, shots on target, all of them, they are rock bottom. So that bodes well for a clean sheet. And Burnley, while better than Norwich, are obviously not a stellar.
This is where we all sell Faircurse now, and he puts 3 past Chelsea, isn't it?
It's going to happen. It's so going to happen, right? I mean, lots of us went off Chelsea, to be honest, before the sort of Club World Cup period because they had gone off the boil with clean sheets.
They did fall off of a cliff,
They did, but on paper, the fixtures look really, really good. So I think that's one of the drivers for a very quick reversal on Chelsea this week and why Rudiger's numbers are going up so fast. A lot of people who've been following the fixtures will have earmarked them for this point onwards, even before the double was announced, because their run includes Brentford, Southampton, Leeds, you name it. It is sterling until the end of the season. So that's kind of one of the big drivers for everyone going there.
Yeah. And he is Chelsea's top scoring defender on 108 points. It's only 8 more points, I think, than Thiago Silva, but, he's still the top scoring defender for Chelsea. Despite this, many are looking, as you were saying there, Kylie, to teammate James for the potential upside and attacking threat, as James has 4 goals and 5 assists to Rudiger's 2 goals and 3 assists. Neither are a bad shout, but what you're getting with Rudiger. You're going to get game time, whereas, as you were saying, we just couldn't be sure when we were thinking about choosing James for our watch list whether or not he would be a starter or starting both fixtures. So we just kind of went a little bit safe with this one, where you would expect Rudiger to be there no matter what, pretty much, because he's played every game this season, bar 1 in game week 8. So, what are his stats looking like, Kylie?
So, the first thing to bear in mind, as I said, I look at last 6 matches rather than last 6 game weeks. So, unlike other teams who have probably just played all their last 6 matches consecutively, we are missing 24 and 25. So this is basically going back to like game week 18 or something. I don't think it's quite that far back,
Time
but you
machine.
know what I mean?
Yeah, it feels that long.
It's stretching back a bit. So it can be a little bit more difficult to read into form on that basis. So just bear it in mind. So his season XG is 1.77 and XA is 1.16. That's not, amazing, but it's not too
it's
bad.
Not terrible either for a defender.
Yeah, exactly. And we know that he is capable of, he's not prolific, but he is capable of getting goals and assists. So it is something to factor in. But as we said, his bread and butter is really the clean sheets. In that 6 game week period, Chelsea are ranked 5th for XGC with 4.95 expected goals conceded. And in fact, they did concede 5 goals in that period. So that's about bang on target. That's not too bad. You probably would have expected better for Chelsea. But again, that factors in that period, right? Where they just kind of kept letting 1 goal in, which was quite
and it was
frustrating.
Always just like 1 goal. Wasn't it?
Just enough to be quite aggravating and not enough to make you sell them.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that was irritating. They do fare better in defense than attack, which probably will not be a massive surprise to anyone. Having watched their matches, seen the struggles with Lukaku, is Havertz playing, is Mount playing, it's been a challenge. And in fact, their XG over that 6-match period was 5.69. Only Watford, Norwich, Wolves, and Burnley were worse off than that. So that is surprising. You would not expect to see the top 3 team that far down from an attacking perspective. So quite interesting. And I think it endorses the fact that Rudiger is probably the Chelsea pick if you're wanting to invest in their fixtures and in the double game week.
Yeah, absolutely. Dread FPL says all wildcard 28 managers will have at least 2 Chelsea defenders, right? I'm not sure. I am not sure. I'm not considering 2 if I mean,
where do you fit them?
Exactly.
I've got a double Liverpool. Now, I could change Robbo, right? But I've got Cancelo.
But
double
selling
Liverpool.
Robbo ahead of a double game week.
Well, no, I just wouldn't do that because there's no logic.
Exactly.
You'd be flipping because ultimately in the next 2 game weeks, they both play 3 games.
Yeah.
So, and Robbo has greater upside than someone like Rudiger.
Or you could get the extra fixture by going from one to
flip-flopping. Yeah. It depends on what other fires you have. I think that there's an opportunity for managers to maybe try and get ahead by going for a double Chelsea defense over a double Liverpool or a double City, just to try and get a different tack, because it's been very difficult in the defense. Certainly they have been so locked in that it is something that could work.
I think it would have to be on some sort of a free hit 30 strategy though, if you were going double Chelsea
absolutely
defense. Yeah. So, okay, well, moving on to our 3rd pick, and it's Carl Walker-Peters. And now this was another pick where we were kind of torn between KWP or Livramento, but we went with KWP as differential. Now, we should mention here that he potentially picked up a hamstring injury in the FA Cup last night. Now, he's not flagged on the website, but I think, don't assume that just because we've put him in the watch list that he's absolutely fine. I would wait and get absolute confirmation on him as a pick before, going in on him. But, hopefully the information we're going to give you on Walker-Peters will work, for a Bednarak or a Livramento or anyone else, in Southampton defence anyway, because Southampton's fixtures, as you've already kind of alluded to with Adams, look really nice, right, Kay?
Yeah, absolutely. So I won't run through the fixtures again because we've just looked at them. It is a little bit disappointing that there might be an issue there because I think Kyle Walker-Peters, as we'll outline, represents a really good opportunity. I'm not sure what the ownership on Livramento is, but there are undoubtedly many managers like myself who had him rotting third on the bench during his whole injury period, because it was just like, who could you change him to? So
12.3%.
12.3%. Okay. Yeah. Kyle Walker-Peters is lower than that. So hopefully he's fine. I personally would avoid Bednarak because, look, I have PTSD with Bednarak. I vividly recall the game week when he got, was it -8 points or something horrific? He was sent off. He had no goal. I don't know. He did some other catastrophic thing. It was a quite... Oh, and then they conceded about 400 goals, right? So it was horrendous. And I, for some reason, I had him second on my bench, and a number of players didn't feature. And so I was just praying that someone would play 1 minute. I was 1 minute of football away from having a -8 come off my bench. Bednarak is well capable of that kind of
just 1 minute.
crazy situation. So that would be my warning.
Yeah, no, I agree. Apparently has now been flagged on the site, so that's disappointing. Yeah. So do watch it. Maybe keep an eye on it. As we say, we don't always do these watch list picks just for the direct game week. So maybe consider Walker-Peters is somebody you could get in post 30 after the blank game week. That was just one that we kind of already had in, and we weren't really sure what was happening, and he hadn't been flagged yet, so we just kind of ran with it in the hope that he would be okay. But yeah, I think his budget of 4.8 million, and we touched upon it. He's great differential at 1.5% compared obviously to Livramento's percentage we mentioned earlier. His stats pretty good, Kylie.
Yeah, no, they are. So, I mean, season long, not so much. I mean, 0.73 XG, which is a bit 2.32 XA, not bad. But actually, so that suggests assist potential more so, which is not surprising, right?
Yeah.
But what is interesting is that in his last 6 matches, he's had 9 attempts on goal, 8 in the box, right? Which is interesting given that he is a defender, not a forward. And 5 of those 9 attempts were on target, right? So his shooting accuracy is impressive and frankly better than most of the forwards that we have available. Those numbers are better than most of the forwards we have available. In addition to that, he's created 7 chances. One of those was a big chance. And as we know, he's put in some really stellar performances over the last couple of weeks and has really shone, and he has got bonus as well as a result of those performances. So he does look like a really nice all-round package if you can go him. And I think just given the fact that Southampton are a really attacking team at the moment, more so than we thought, they are a respectable team defensively. So if you look at XG, big chances conceded, shots on target conceded, they're about bang on mid-table, which isn't bad given that they're pretty cheap options. And bear in mind that data is factoring in not just the last 2 game weeks where they've kept clean sheets with Livra back in the team, but that period before that when they were sort of conceding more goals. So they're looking quite good for a cheap. Moderate your excitement a bit. Because, they're not a premium defense by any means, but there's good potential for a double.
Yeah, and I had a little look at Livramento and KWP when, I did see about the injury, and they both have the same goals and assists with 1 goal and 2 assists apiece for the season. If you're wondering, then Kylie won't like this very much, but Bednarak has 3 goals, who is Southampton's top scoring defender.
Highs and lows of Bednarak.
Compared to KWP's 63 points. I think the main difference here is obviously that Walker-Peters has played a lot less minutes in his time due to injury. And in that time, he has 5 clean sheets compared to Bednarak 6 and Livramento 7. So Southampton are better in defence when Walker-Peters is there. So if he is out, maybe you could bear that in mind if you're going with Livramento or Bednarak But yeah, it's just such a shame if he is out, and I think we need to know how long he's out for as well, because I think it took a long time for him to be flagged, so we need to know how long the injury is actually going to, affect him for. As I say, he could really still be a very nice, post game week 30 pick, and he got that assist in the FA Cup last night as well. So yeah, do we have any questions or observations in the chat?
Look, so we've one here. I am sorry if I mispronounce your name, but Aishwarya Dorje. Thoughts on ASM or Willock? I have one free transfer. Was going to remove ESR, Bowen for Willock, or should I transfer Antonio to ASM? Should I take a 4-point hit for Chelsea defender? That's a lot of different questions. We're actually going to be covering Willock shortly.
Yes.
I would personally prefer going either ESR or Bowen, maybe ESR. I know he has a double, but with Martinelli back in the team, he's always a bit touch and go for minutes. I understand the logic of selling Bowen as well, which is maybe slightly more risky given his ownership, but fixtures aren't great.
Yeah.
Willock obviously has the double. We'll get into a bit more on him. I'm not sure that ASM, that St. Maximin is double game week ready.
No.
I think he's still flagged, or if he's not still flagged,
only just coming back. Yeah, I think so.
That feels like maybe a risk too far, though I completely understand wanting to get rid of Antonio. A 4-point hit for a Chelsea defender. If you have a way around game week 30, then I see no issue with that, because the fixtures are really lovely. They do have a nice double. So I think you will get the points back for it, but it's just making sure that you're able to navigate that period.
Yeah, I agree with that. So I think I'm a little bit reluctant to say this, seeing as we have Rudiger on our list, but I'm a little bit nervous that both Norwich and Newcastle have been able to grab a goal.
Sneak one.
Recently. Newcastle
definitely.
Especially looking really good. So, I mean, to load up on that. But I think you should expect at least one clean sheet, and then that will help.
Well, it's Norwich and Burnley, actually. So,
yes, of course, Burnley. Yeah. Okay. So then probably not going to score unless, as I say, Vegas decides to go big. So
it's written in the stars.
It is.
Like, we're all going to sell him.
It really is. You can see it coming. But yeah. What? Focus says KWP flagged for offside on the site. Pick 2 to start: Ramsey, Burn, Livramento, or Saka. I think probably Ramsey and Saka.
Livramento has a double, so I would be starting that. I wouldn't want to bench Saka, though. That's tricky. I'd be benching Burn. Oh, tough.
Yeah.
Want to play a bench boost?
Yeah.
That's quite tricky, actually.
That's a tough one. I think definitely Ramsey. We both agree with that. But then I think for me, it would be just edged between Livramento and Saka. Yeah. All right. It's time for our watch list picks for game week 28. Who are you picking ahead of the double, Kylie?
So, as already alluded to, we're going double again with Willock. I'm hoping it's not a double disaster zone like the Burnley picks were. We've name-checked Veghurst several times this stream. Hopefully this is a better pick. So Willock, I think he's a nice punt for the next 2 fixtures on a few provisos. One being that he is a short-term pick, right? Because they do blank in 30 and their fixtures aren't otherwise amazing. So I just think that's sort of something to bear in mind. But he is only 5.7 and he's 1.7% owned, unless that's recently gone up, which it might have. because people are starting to look at these players and there's
yeah, 2.4 now.
2.4, so he's gone up a little bit since then. Either way, uber differential. The question marks over St. Maximin, of course. Wood cannot get a goal. So, I mean, the alternative there is Fraser, but I just think Willock feels pretty nailed. I don't know. I just think he's probably the one of the two that I would go for, and maybe that's wrong. And maybe part of it is nostalgia because he did do really well last season. Obviously, he went on this kind of crazy run.
Yeah.
When he first joined them. But his XG is 2.35, XA 0.42. Quite underwhelming for this season. But of course, he has been in and out of the team. Yeah. He has missed quite a number of weeks. What is interesting is that he only has 2 goals and 1 assist this season, but all 3 of them have come in the last 3 matches. So nice. It's definitely like things are aligning for him. And if we did follow him last season, it was not just, the odd goal here and there. I think he scored 8 goals last season, but like they were consecutive game weeks. He went on just this crazy run. So maybe he could replicate that. Who knows? In the last games he's played, so he hasn't played the last 6, but he has played the last 5. Mm-hmm. He's had 15 attempts, which is nice, 9 in the box, 7 of them were blocked, and only 4 of them were on target. So that the shot accuracy bit, not amazing. But last season, his shot accuracy was 56%, 23 attempts, 13 on target. So maybe we'll start to see some improvement there. Again, he could just be sort of finding his feet after being quite rusty. So I still think at least he's relatively prolific in terms of his shooting. Hopefully it just kind of finds the goal. Newcastle are obviously buoyant at the moment because things are looking a lot better for them. They've basically won or drawn their matches since like game week 18 when they played City. So they are on a good run after being sort of squarely in the relegation 3 spots at the bottom. They are looking much, much more likely to stay up now. Fixtures for the double are Brighton and Southampton, then Chelsea and Everton. So Chelsea obviously not looking like an amazing game, but the other 3, they are capable of putting it up to them, and he could get something out of those matches. So, something to consider. But as I said, again, I feel like we keep just saying about game week 30, bear it in mind, have an escape route, whatever that is. But for a 2 game week punt, he is a decent pick because they are the only team that have the back-to-back doubles.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, no, I have obviously considered him if I wildcard. And he's a nice price point, and of course, he used to play at Arsenal, so I have a bit of a kind of soft spot for him anyway. He's a great pick, and I think short term especially if you're considering free hitting in 30, having the double out of somebody at that price is really, really nice. So I think he's a great pick. So I've decided to choose the new guy at Spurs, Kulusevski, I think you say it. I have no idea. Kulusevski. So I'm just going to call him Kulu for short. Hopefully everyone's fine with that. Now, I have watched this guy closely in the past 3 game weeks, and he is a quality player. Spurs have tried to find someone to fit in that front 3 with Kane and Spurs in the past with the likes of Moura, and it's had varying success for Spurs, to be honest. It hasn't really come off well. Sometimes Moura's done fantastically, other times not so well. However, this guy, I just think he fits in so well. So much so, he looks to be taking some of the attacking space from the likes of Son and Kane. And in the game against Leeds, he could have had another goal. So if not for a great save, so that's, it's really, really good. He's played 333 minutes and has already racked up 2 goals and 1 assist. That's 2 less assists than Moura has managed in 1,512 minutes. So I think maybe just maybe. I know that Moura's been out because of COVID, but I do feel like Kulu's been so good that he's potentially nailed down that spot now. Okay, so Spurs won't be playing Leeds every week, but one of Kulu's goals and one of his assists came against Man City in game week 26. So it does show that he can, score against the bigger teams. So despite Spurs' potential tough-looking double in Man United and Brighton, of which I think you could probably argue at this point that maybe they're not quite as tough as they look on paper, with both only keeping 7 clean sheets this season. He's looking a great shout. He's like one of the few teams now that we have since last night that know that we have obviously a game this week, a double next week, and then a game in 30, which is really nice. So if you were to, go in on them, they've got games to cover the next few game weeks, and you're not worrying about having to try and find somebody for game week 30. And he faces Everton this week. Before that, who have only kept 4 clean sheets this season. So yeah, if I was wildcarding and getting him in, I'm not loving the fact that I'd actually be having him on my bench potentially for that one. There's a real chance here, it feels like, for Spurs to really capitalise, as much as I hate to say that as an Arsenal fan. I think if they do, which of course Spurs can Spurs it up as they have done in the past, but if they do really push on from here with some of these really good fixtures, then I would expect Kulu to be right amongst, all of these goals. So, if you are on a wild card and you're trying to decide whether to go Son and Kane, personally, I think that's a lot of money, because once you put all of your money in Son and Kane, you're stuck. Like, literally, that's so much cash, where maybe considering going Son and Kulu or Kane and Kulu just to free up that extra bit of cash, and that cash goes a long way, believe me. It could get you a Chelsea defender, it could get you Robertson, could really help you out. So I think in terms of the wild card, and in terms of, just generally, even if I didn't wild card this week, he'd definitely be somebody I'd be considering for Trossard, who I still have in my team. So even if for some reason Watford got through tonight and I ended up with 7 people in game week 30, and then I was looking for somebody who I could get in who would cover the double next week and then the blank in 30, he'd definitely be a pick for me, because he's just 6 million, so he's a really nice price point. I mean, you'd like to think he was a big upgrade on Trossard. I just, again, Uber differential 1.5% owned at the moment. This is a really early pick for me, mostly based on eye test from watching him, because I can't say to you guys that he's definitely nailed and all of these things. It's just that he's looked so good. I'm not sure why they would really change things up, but except maybe to rest him. But I don't think Spurs' fixtures are so tightly compact that they'd really need to do that. And if they did, I'd still expect him to probably start and then maybe come off early for the likes of Moura, especially if he's just coming back, off of illness. I don't think they'll just drop Moura in, especially when Kulu's been playing so
hard to imagine,
well. What's your thoughts on him, Kylie? Have I persuaded you just to sell Son? Because we're both on Son, right, at the moment.
Right.
And just join me in this absolute madness.
Not fully, although I really do like Kulusevski. So yeah. I completely agree with you. I think in so far as it may be being difficult for people to pull off having both Son and Kane. That's a huge outlay. We've already talked about premium defense, trying to fit in Chelsea defense in there. We've got Salah. We've got, there was a time when we all had lots of money. That time is not now.
Yes.
So I can't, for instance, swing Kane. I have Son in there. I have a budget forward line. just because I prefer the premium defense and midfielders at the moment.
Yeah.
So getting to Kane would require some upheaval.
Mm-hmm.
But I do really like the idea of having an additional Spurs option, particularly because of that Game Week 30 fixture. I really want to leave the door open to not having to free hit in 30 if I can.
Yeah.
And so someone like Kulusevski is a nice fit for, say, James Ward-Prowse, who I have in my team, have him for the 28 double. But then, of course, he's not playing in 30 now. So he's 6.5. So it's a quite easy substitute to make going into 29 with a double and then a game in 30. Of course, there's maybe an advantage to holding off on the transfer to just see what happens with Mora coming back. But like you, I think it's maybe a punt worth taking, because it's hard to imagine, Mora's been there for seasons. We know what we get out of Mora.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a huge amount.
Yes. Well, I mean, I said about all those minutes and all.
I mean, I
the
like,
same amount of returns, effectively.
Yeah, I like him, but he's not prolific. This is a fact. So given that Spurs have been somewhat of a yo-yo, it's basically one great performance, then then they lose 1-0 to Burnley kind of situation.
Yeah.
And so on it goes. I think, and I don't want to get into the business of trying to understand managers, because that's challenging task, but it
sounds
think,
like a comeback waiting to happen on us if we do too much of that.
Yeah, exactly. Bad takes are us.
Yeah.
But I do think it makes sense for him to continue to start or get sizable minutes, just because he has come out of the gates and looked really, really strong. So I think if you have that spot in your team, particularly if you have someone in your midfield maybe going into 29 that you would like to swap to someone who has a double in 29 and then plays in 30, he does look like he could be a good pick for that. Probably not a priority for anyone in 28 though, unless they're wildcarding, just because I think their focus is going to be on the Rafinhas and, JWPs and Willocks and the like, who have an immediate double.
Yeah, agreed. So I kind of was thinking of him more in a kind of wild card free hit potentially, although I think you probably load up on doubles, but mostly on a wild card, or if you're not wild carding and not wanting to, you don't have your free hit left, that he would be a good pick in that kind of 6 mil mark that would see you through a couple of game weeks, albeit you wouldn't necessarily get 2 game weeks out of him. But we mentioned Rafinha just if not last game week, I think the game week before when we did the watch list, so he would be a nice follow on from Rafinha after Rafinha's double potentially. Obviously we'll have to wait and see about the new manager there, and Leeds do have Norwich, so I think I was thinking more in a kind of wild card sense on this one, but I think he's not a bad shout. As you say, there are lots of players around that 6 mil mark that we're really considering who we want, to get rid of now and going forward. Yeah. And he's definitely a player that can carry you forward for a couple of game weeks. And hopefully do well. Potentially for me if I get him in, but also for the watch list.
Well, okay. After last week's showing, we do need some points.
We do.
And I think the thing with him as well is it's just so much more fun when your punts actually perform. It is way more exciting than Salah got goals and we've captained him. Yay! Look, we love it, but. There's nothing quite like the feeling of owning someone who's so low owned and them actually getting you decent points. It's like those rare moments that we live for. And it's why we play this somewhat torturous game.
It's that thing where I can see something really special in him, and it's that hope, I guess, as an FPL manager, that you're just spotting something that little bit early ahead of everyone else, and I think I know I mentioned to you last game week, and we rightly left it a game week just to kind
Although
of.
if we had picked
I know
him,
it would have looked a lot better.
would have, yeah.
It looked a lot better. But yeah, I've been wanting to kind of sneak him in for a couple of game weeks, so I'm glad he's finally making it in now. Just do not let me down, Kulu, please. Okay, we had a couple of questions in the chat. Madison or Gordon, I think, is one. Do you have a preference on
Well,
either of
this
those,
week
Kylie?
is an interesting thing because they probably neither of them stand out to me for this particular game week. Obviously, Everton have a double in 29, but and obviously Leicester play in 30. I probably prefer Madison, but I personally wouldn't be going for either of them this week. But obviously, if maybe it's a wild card or you're taking a longer term view, then that you have to factor that in.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, Crikey, or Crikesy says, should I play Brozier on a double or Foden versus United? I think bro.
Yeah, that's tough. I would probably be inclined to punt on Brozier and hope Foden gets rested, but it's massively risky because he could very easily play and very easily do really well against United. Actually, that's not a decision I'd want to make. Surely you have someone else you can bench other than either of those two.
Oh, I don't know, because there's so many doubles out there, isn't there? It probably is a benching headache this week. I mean, that's the only one thing about wildcarding this week is that, I'd have to sell Son, which I'm kind of not, as you know, I love Sonny, so I'm not mad keen on that. But yeah, it does allow for a bit more flexibility in my team going forward, and B, it really does leave a benching headache for the next few weeks. We have had this question a few times today, but I just see Linesh's directly at the moment. Is it worth getting rid of Bowen?
Well, I am.
Yeah.
And actually, I mean, that makes me a bit sad because it's one good decision I made this year is that I went very early on Bowen.
Same.
So I was very, very ahead of the curve. Slightly too ahead of the curve, but it's okay because he eventually started doing really, really well. Yeah. And have had him for a really long time, but their fixtures aren't great. That's not to say that he's incapable of getting returns. West Ham aren't looking amazing in attack at the moment. He's still capable of individual brilliance, but there are so many midfielders at the moment who are in and around his price, who have really nice doubles, who, sort of tick all of these boxes. The one thing that might turn people off now is, of course, that he plays in 30. So that might sort of prevent people from getting rid of him.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a right or wrong answer there. I personally am doing it. But I will do it with a view that I am happy to get him back.
Who are you going for?
So I'm likely going for
I'm asking
Coutinho.
now, and she's like, I don't want to say because then my mini league rivals will know.
I'm going for a Villa midfielder.
Yeah.
Probably Coutinho.
Okay. Yeah. No.
Although I think Ramsey is a great shout, but
yeah.
I have the money there, so I'm going for Coutinho, hoping that he delivers.
I think it very much depends on your team structure. So depending on whether you're going to free hit in 30, whether you're going to wildcard, all of that sort of stuff, it very much depends. If you're on a wildcard, I think all of the wildcard drafts I've done have pretty much not featured Bowen, only simply because I know I would bench him the next 2 game weeks, and then I'd only really be keeping him for game week 30, and then it would be, well, do I want him going forward? Don't I want him going forward? Whereas I'd rather not have him for the next 3 game weeks and potentially get him back in. I know it's going to cost me more money that way, but if he's only going to be sat on my bench anyway for 2 game weeks, then it doesn't make much sense on a wild card to keep him. If, however, Watford did actually manage to be playing in game week 30 and I had 7 players then playing in game week 30, Bowen would be a part of that 7, so it would make no real sense to sell him then. I would just obviously use my transfers the next game week or two to make other transfers, likes of selling, Trossard and Webster, who are injured, and get players in that cover 30 that way. So I think it is very, very much team dependent, but I think there's nothing wrong with getting off of him now. Like, as you say, they're tough fixtures, and I think if you can cover him with somebody who's going to get who you're actually going to play in your team for the next 2 game weeks, and then be able to cover 30 as well, then there's absolutely no problem, I think, in getting off of him. Although, as you say, it is a sad moment in all of our lives. And we'll probably all go running back like game week 32 or something when their fixtures get better again. And they've got a double game week going, Bowen, we're sorry. Come back.
Miss you. Although, it looks like he won't, or I guess it depends. I don't think he is due another one, but obviously.
Yeah.
We will see.
I guess if he misses, he won't miss out on 30, will he? So no, so it's unlikely. So
and it's 4:30 now.
Oh,
so
wow. Okay, gosh, we better wrap up.
Been chatting for a while, so we should probably start wrapping up.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, best of luck for the up and coming game week, guys. I hope you have an absolutely fabulous one with lots of green arrows. Before you go, Kylie, do you want to wrap us up with the admin?
So as always, leave a comment with any suggestions you might have. If you enjoyed the stream, please like and subscribe and tune in next time. And otherwise, as always, you can find links to my content and Nims below, and best of luck for the game week ahead.
Yep. Bye, guys.
Bye.